Okay, so this video will depart from the traditional coining science terms into Sanskrit videos. This one was focused on naming some North American and South American animals into the Sanskrit language so people in India can have terms to describe these animals. This is useful in picture books, dubbing movies, or making movies that's set in America, or fieldwork in America. Honestly, a lot of applications. Let's move on. So, the problem: this is not a matter of scientific literacy, I mean kind of is, but simply to preserve the nativeness of local Indian languages by using the use of European words. For example, the word for octopus in Indian languages is octopus, as in English, instead of using a local term. Maybe it could be something like Ashtapada or Ashtabhuja, a Sanskrit word meaning eight-footed or eight-limbed creature. The point is to preserve nativeness. But at some point, it'll become inevitable that we borrow from a foreign language. But at least we must try to make sure it's not from a European language. We will make it simple. And the best option is Native American languages. We'll see why. So let's talk about the moose. It's a member of the deer family. The word moose comes from a Native American Algonquian language word along the line of mos or moose. Pardon my pronunciation. Since it's a deer, it should be called moose deer, to make sure it can be declinable in Sanskrit, like give it a case suffix and so on. So something along the lines of moose harina or mosa harina. And since moose is basically an elk from the Eurasian perspective, now let's talk about beavers. It is said that the word for beaver originates from Proto-Indo-European word for brown and is related to Sanskrit babru, also meaning brown, but it also refers to a mongoose. Since the animal eats wood, the Sanskrit term for a creature that eats wood is dravarna, literally wood for food, and thus it can be called dravarna babru, or the brown creature that eats wood as food. Or, since it's a rodent related to the mouse, it could be called dravarna musha, or a mouse that has wood for food. Now the mountain lion or cougar, or puma, or Florida panther. Not an actual lion, but closely related to house cats. The word cougar is from Tupi language, Siwaswarana, which is actually a South American language, and from that language we have Portuguese Cucarana, and the word cougar is from a Tupi language, a South American language. The word is Siwaswarana, from which we get Portuguese Cucarana, from which English gets cougar. Let's borrow it directly from the Tupi language and render the animal name into Sanskrit as Suvasvarana Bidala, meaning cougar cat. Please use the local language word for cat though. So in Telugu it's pilli, or Hindi it's billi. Just try to use your local languages. The whole point is to extend the scientific knowledge into the local languages for the commoners to understand. The American robin, it's actually a thrush. Thrush in Sanskrit is sharika, as in Thirdus Sarika, although it's said to refer to the myna by other sources. Since this robin has a red belly, we'll call it a red belly thrush or Arunodara sharika. I suggest use the local language for red and for belly and for thrush. Jaguar, possibly related to the Tupi-Guarani word Yaguara. The Sanskrit rendering would thus be Yagvara Shardula or Jaguar panther, as jaguars are technically. Perhaps we can call jaguar America Chitraka or American leopard, as jaguar is related to the leopard and kind of looks like a leopard, although there's a spot pattern difference, and it lives in the Americas. The ocelot. It's spotted like the ocelot, but is closely related to the house cats than to panthers, thus the ocelot will be called Chitraka Bidalaka, or little spotted cat. Alternatively, we could use the Nahuatl word ocelotl, which is the likely source of the English word ocelot, though the Nahuatl word actually kind of refers to jaguars. The tol in Ocelotl is actually a case suffix in Nahuatl, and the actual word is Ocelo. We can render that into Sanskrit as Ocela, and thus Ocelot is Ocela bidhala or Ocelot cat. Please use local languages. Alligator and rattlesnake. By the way, alligators are different from crocodiles, although they're both crocodilians. If you ever looked at my Sanskrit taxonomy video, you would see that I named the alligator Urumka kumbira, which means a wide-mouthed crocodile or wide-mouthed crocodilian, and perhaps we could just use kumbira for short. Rattlesnake. The rattle can have an equivalent to our dhamaru. So essentially, we have a dhamaru sarpa or a rattle-tailed snake, alternatively, which is dhamaru pucha sarpa. Please use your local words for rattle, tail, and snake. Blue jay. Jays aren't a monophyletic group, and they're named for their sound, though some jays are closely related to magpies. Magpie is Kutapakshi, according to the Elfin Links list, which is on JSTOR for you to access. So a blue jay is Nila Kutaka, or a blue magpie. The Hindi gives blue jay as Nila Kanta, though it refers to an entirely different bird. Bison. Believe it or not, the American bison is closely related to the yak. I think on the matrilineal side, we can call it an American yak. Of course, this means that the common ancestor of American and European bisons and yaks would be a yak in the Sanskrit naming system. The word yak is chamaraha. Thus, bison is also chamaraha. Please use the local language for yak or bison. Interestingly, American bisons on the maternal side, as mentioned, is related to yaks than to European bisons. The American bison is along the lines of America chamaraha. The lynx. The word vanabidala refers to the caracal, which is sometimes called the desert lynx, though it's not really a lynx. Lynx should need another translation. Until a further translation into Indian language arise, for the time being, it will be called spotted cat or shabala bidala. I had to use a Sanskrit dictionary just for the record. That's why you can see some of the Devanagari in highlighted form. The bald eagle, which is America's national animal. They aren't bald, but they do have a white head that makes them look bald, so let's call them white-headed eagle, or Shuklashira Garuda, or Shuklashira. Uh, please use local languages for white head and eagle. Red fox. Fox in Sanskrit is Lomataka, from which the Hindi word for fox derives from. Red, as in the coat color, is better translated as Pingala, which actually kind of means reddish-brown. Thus, fox is Pingala Lomataka. Elk. It's a bulky deer, and bulky and powerful reminds me of the Sanskrit word for powerful, which is related to bull, and man, which is Vrishan. The word for deer is Harina, thus elk for the time being will be rendered as Vrishaharina. Tapirs. The Indonesian or Malay name for tapir is tenuk, so I'll borrow that into Sanskrit as tenuka. Thus, tapir in Sanskrit and Indian languages would be tenuka. The coyote, also called the prairie wolf. Prairie is the grassland or kshetra in Sanskrit. Wolf is vrka. So coyote or the prairie wolf is kshetra vrka. But please use your local languages for the word prairie/field or wolf, or perhaps dog. Bears. We'll talk about two kinds of bears. Bear in Sanskrit is vriksha or baluka. The latter is the one that gives rise to the modern Indian languages as words for bear. Grizzly bears are also called brown bears, which is nearly great because we can use the Sanskrit word for brown. Brown in Sanskrit here is kapila or kadru. I'm just going to refrain from using babru. So brown bear or grizzly bear could be kapila riksha or kadru riksha, kapila baluka or kadru baluka. Black bear is simply Krishna riksha or Krishna baluka. Conclusion: not much, but vidya viveka tattva.